I was going to tell you how to use your speakers later. Well, welcome to the May 9th meeting of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. And at this time, I would like to call on opening announcements.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those in attendance, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and planning department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representatives to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. All speakers at the podium, please remove your face mask before speaking into the microphone. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the commission and the board will be retained by the secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the planning department. The Planning Commission and the board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on all the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to the district court.
Thank you. Could we have a roll call now, please?
Yes, sir. Dool.
Here.
Mader.
Here.
McKay.
Here.
Fry.
Present.
Bill Johnson.
Here.
Josh Blick is absent. Nix.
Here.
Klontz.
Here.
Warren.
Here.
Joe Johnson is absent. Miles is absent. Zimbelman.
Here.
Aldrich.
Here.
Williams Bay.
Here.
Sir, I show 3 members are absent and 11 members are present.
Thank you. Got a couple of items I want to cover before we go forward. First, we talked about the mics. These mics here are, when you turn them on and you see a green light, they will stay hot the whole time. So please, you push the button again to turn them off. Please turn them off when you're not speaking. And just so that we get accurate recordings, we are going to record votes by show of hands today. So if I say, all those say aye, hold your hand up. Also, we have a group of cases which are being deferred, and I'm going to go through that. You've got them on your agenda. The first case is subdivision 2.2. The second case is subdivision 2.3. And then we have vacation item 3.1, and these are all being deferred to May 23rd, which is our next meeting. Then we have public hearing item 4.2 will be deferred to May 23rd. And we have item 4.5, which is being deferred to June 27th. So there's, I believe, 5 on there that it doesn't require any action, but we won't be hearing today. We do have a BZA agenda today, but first, let's go through and see what we can take on consent agenda. Oh, excuse me. Got to go back to approval of the MAPC meetings. And I show that was Joe Johnson was not there.
That is the BZA. I show Zimbelman.
Tony? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by holding your hand up.
Aye.
Opposed? Please indicate by show of hands. Not me. No,
Unanimous.
that was for demonstration purposes only. Okay. So now we'll go to the consent agenda. First case is subdivision 2023-00049 at West 37th Street and North 247th Street West. Does anybody want to hear this case?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we will hear this case. Next is item 2.4, which is subdivision 2024-00018 as one-step final plat at south of 119th Street and west half a mile of West Pawnee. Is there anyone on the commission that wants to hear that case? Is there anyone in the audience present that would like to hear that case? We'll take that one on consent.
Mr. Chairman, I see we have approved item 2.4.
Motion by Mr. McKay, second by Mr. Warren. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Any opposed signify the same. No. Okay, the motion carries unanimously. Next, we have vacation items. 3.2 is the first one. Vacation 2024-00020, located on West Douglas, near South Clara Street. Is there anyone on the commission that wants to hear that case? Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear that case? If not, we'll take that on consent. Item 3.3 is vacation 2024 00021, and that is located at East 37th Street North and North St. Francis. Anyone on the commission want to hear that case? Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear that case? We'll take that on consent.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve vacation items 3.2 and 3.3.
We have a motion by Mr. Fry, second by Mr. Mader. All those, who? Oh, Williams Bay, I'm sorry. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving ahead, public hearings, item 4.1, we will hear because staff is recommending denial. The next item we've got to hear is item 4.3 CUP 2024 00011, located near South 119th Street West and West Pawnee. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear that case? Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear that case? We'll take that one on consent. Next, we have 4.4. It's a PUD 2024-0005, located near East 37th Street North and North Ohio. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear that case? Is there anyone present from the public that would like to hear that case? We'll take that one on consent. The next one was deferred. The next case I show as 4.7.
4.6, sir.
4.6 we will hear because staff is recommending denial. 4.7, zoning case 2024-00021, located near 119th Street West and West Pawnee. Does anyone on the commission want to hear that case? Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear that case? We'll take that on consent. Do I have a motion for consent of the? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve on consent items 4.3, 4.4, and 4.7.
Second? We have a motion by Mr. Fry and a second by Mr. Nix. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Now we'll adjourn the MAPC meeting and call the meeting of the BZA Board of Zoning Appeals to order. First, we need approval of the BZA meeting minutes. That is where I showed Joe Johnson not present for that one. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of April 11, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
You have your pick.
I'll take Mr. Hicks made the motion, and second was Mr. Williams Bay. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. So we will hear item 2. No, we can take that one on consent if nobody wants to hear it. Is there anybody that wants to hear? Let me read this. This is BZA 2024-00014, located on East Lincoln and South Edgemore Avenue. Is there anyone on the commission that wants to hear that case?
Mr. Chair, I just have a question on that for staff.
Okay, you want to go ahead and ask it?
Yes. I guess my question is, if this was for a retail business, for example, would they be required to do the screening?
Yes.
Part of their discussion in their review was based on the nature of the use being a service, security service police station, was to improve visibility for safety reasons. So that was something that staff took into consideration. Was by nature the use is different than like a retail establishment. The other thing that we took into consideration was that the landscape requirement for the parking lot screening along the street is being provided, and that the landscaping along the south boundary is adjacent to an educational establishment for administrative offices and is not developed residentially, even though it's residential zoning. So that also is a unique situation of the use within the zoning district is not residential in nature, and the parking lot is still screened from the street, which is the intent of the landscape ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess I just have a question is why did it take so long for us to recognize that this needed to get done? I mean, this is a city facility that has been planned and under construction for some time. It feels like we're very late in the game on getting this done. I mean, am I just really off the wall here?
Planning staff was not involved from the onset of the planning of this facility. The police department were the ones who reached out to planning when they determined it was needed, and they realized they did.
Well, we have to do better, and that's not on you all. That's on the police department. This is a construction facility that's been under construction for some time, and there's no reason for this to be so late in the game on that. It's not. I'm not upset with planning. This should have been thought through better. Thank you.
Any other comments on that? Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear this case? If not, we'll take that on consent. Item 3, we will hear because staff is recommending denial. So I have a motion to approve on consent item 2.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Warren and a second by Mr. Aldridge. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we will hear case number 3, BZA 2024-00019.
Yes, good afternoon. I have a sneaking suspicion this microphone will not get me way down here, so I'm going to hold it up. My name is Brad Etherly, Senior Planner for MAPD. Today we're discussing case BZA 2024-00019. A little background. The applicant here is requesting a variance to reduce the interior side setback from 6 feet to 6 inches to allow a shed under construction come into conformance. The applicant is in the process of building the shed and realized it was out of compliance with the Unified Zoning Code setback regulations during the inspection process. The applicant claims that property lines were misrepresented prior to the applicant building the shed and hiring a surveyor to confirm the property lines. You can see by the zoning map that the property is surrounded on all sides by the SF5 single-family residential district and is developed with single-family dwellings. Little case history: on April 27th, 1954, the subject site was platted as part of the Mona Lynn Estates Edition. There are no other zoning cases associated with the property. We'll go into the 5 criteria for granting a variance now. We'll start with the applicant narrative and then respond with staff analysis. The first criteria is that the request is unique to this property and was not created by the applicant. The applicant states that the variance request arises from a unique condition of abstract property lines and incorrect markers, which adversely affects the northwest corner of our structure already being built. Staff does not agree that the request is unique. Based on the attached survey, the existing fence was not built on the property line, which may have led the applicant to incorrectly assuming the location of the property line. However, the distance between the location of the shed and to the fence line, the shed would have been out of compliance with the side yard setback. The applicant did not provide any evidence to show that the location of the proposed shed would be in compliance with the setback standards of the UZC. Criteria number 2, the granting of the variance will not adversely affect the rights of the adjacent property owners or residents. The applicant states that the granting of our request for a variance permit in no way shall affect the rights of any adjacent property. We have spoken directly to our neighbor on the north side, and they are in agreement that it doesn't affect them and are fine with our proceeding to finish, should you approve our request for variance. Staff agrees that because of the size of the properties and the distance between the shed and the neighboring property owner's dwelling unit, the variance should not adversely affect adjacent property owners. The applicant did not provide any support in writing from the neighbor. Criteria 3, the strict application of the provisions of the zoning code would constitute an unnecessary hardship on the applicant. The applicant narrative states that the hardship shall incur us, the property owner, should our application be denied, as we have already spent considerable amount of money to get our project to the halfway mark. Hence, foundation concrete work, walls, roof beams, and partial wood decking would need to be demolished, hindering financial burden to homeowner and setback to start again at later time. Staff disagrees. Though construction work has begun on the shed, it is clear that work began prior to obtaining a building permit. Once a review occurred, a survey was required, which indicated the proposed shed is in violation of the setback. Based on this, the hardship on the applicant is self-imposed. Criteria number 4, the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, general welfare, or harmonious development of the community. The applicant states, in no way shall our request for approval create any public health issue, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, general welfare, or disrupt the harmonious development of the community. In fact, since purchase, we have remodeled home. We did extensive yard upgrades and have received compliments from neighbors. Staff does not agree. Even though the shed is a large distance away from any other structures on neighboring properties, permitting the construction of a structure 6 inches away from the property line does not promote harmonious development in the community. Given the size of the applicant's property, there is adequate space to construct the shed in compliance with required setbacks. Criteria number 5, the granting of the variance will not be opposed to the general spirit and intent of the Unified Zoning Code. The applicant states that granting the variance we seek is not done so with intent of opposing the general spirit of any applicable code. Until the survey request by Sedgwick County Permit Office, no one knew property markers were incorrectly positioned. As we are with our property, the variance of the northwest corner is our issue. Staff does not agree. The proposed variance does not uphold the spirit and intent of the code. The proposed shed would have violated the setback requirement even if the fence line and the property line were the same. Given the size of the applicant's property, there is adequate space to construct the shed and it comply with required setbacks. If we can move to the site pics, please. There we are looking west towards the subject property. You can see the shed on the right-hand side. Next picture, looking east across the street. Next picture, this is looking north down the street. And then last picture, looking south down the street. The recommendation of staff is that the variance to reduce the interior side setback from 6 feet to 6 inches for a storage shed does not meet the 5 criteria required to grant a variance. Should the board determine that all 5 conditions necessary to the granting of the variance can be found to exist, then it is the recommendation of the secretary that the following variance for the reduction in the interior side setback is granted with the following conditions. Number 1, the shed shall be constructed in substantial conformance with the approved site plan. And number 2, building permits shall be obtained from MAPCD for the construction of the shed. That concludes my report, and I can stand for any questions.
Yes, Mr. Nix.
Can you flip back to the first photograph?
The first photograph?
Yeah.
That's okay.
You don't have an ability to zoom in on that thing, do
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Not with this presentation.
Mr. Aldridge.
Yeah, I sort of want to follow up, I think, on Commissioner Hicks's thoughts there, or Nick's. We don't have any photographs besides that one of the shed itself. I'm assuming it's a concrete slab, and, was there, foundation or anything like that poured on there? Do you know of?
I do believe that the applicant did state that foundation concrete work, walls, roof beams, and partial wood decking would need to be demolished. And they are present, so they could also respond to that question.
Do you have any idea what the size of the shed, what the proposed shed is?
I do not. That would be another question for the applicant.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commission? If not, we'll call on the applicant or agent to come forward. You will have 10 minutes. Please give us your name and address.
Yes. All the way to the.
And I would hold this up to you.
All right. My name is Erskine Frazier. My address is 1618 South Ida. I'm here representing Azeb. She's here also. We're going to ask for some considerations. If you see the picture, you'll see the fence. The property markers that are actually there are stakes. They're not shown in the picture. They're further away from that fence. That's the first thing. If we were to measure it at its current state, it's 36 inches from that fence. We didn't know there's a 6-foot rule. We've spoken with the neighbor that owns the property. They have no problem with it. They don't want to move their fence. We've done a survey. I guess in 1954, they didn't put down stakes or markers. We've had to go like 2.5 blocks to have this thing surveyed where there is a current marker. We didn't know we had to have it surveyed to begin with to build a shed. There's, some unique circumstances that go with this. We know that we're kind of in a violation now. We agree with that. But at the same time, we're increasing the property value. Before, substantially, it was a little bit of a shabby property. We brought it up. A shed isn't going to really increase a lot of value, but the cost we've already put into it is significant. We've paid for the survey. We've paid for the foundation. It is a slab. It's not really any kind of foundation under it. It's a slab. We've paid for the wood. We've paid for the roof beams. We've halted progress when you guys came around and said you need a permit. It's just a shed. The neighbors, they don't have a complaint about it. Like I said, the lady that lives to the north of it, she's fine with it. She doesn't want to move her fence. We're fine with that. We don't have writing of it, but I'm sure we could provide it if that's all you were requesting. It's not that we want to tear it down and move it. We're asking humbly to approve letting it stay. We're not really in any violation. Once it is completed, it will improve the property. I'll let Azeb speak. I'm sure she has some things. Huh? That we started in the beginning without really knowing that we had to have it.
Yeah. So what am I supposed to do or say?
I don't,
Sir, do you have any other comments at this
she
time?
don't have no
I don't
comments.
really have any comments.
Hey, is there anyone on the commission that would like to ask a question or comments? Yes, Mr. Aldridge.
Sir, what size is it? Is it like a 10 by 10, 10 by 12?
It's like a 12 by 12.
Okay.
It's very small. No, it's not.
No, we have a friend that was building it for us. He's in the construction business.
Well, if he's in a construction business, he probably should have done the due diligence and looked and see what the requirements were, especially that close to the property line. I think I'd want to make sure that I'm in compliance before I started building a shed and going through that cost. Let me ask you a question. And in the event that this is upheld and denied, could you take that down and maybe cut that slab and then add it closer to?
Then we're not in
with the-
compliance with the measurements between the house and the shed. From what I'm understanding, we would be too close to the house. We would have to actually attach it to the house to come into compliance.
But is there adequate property space to relocate the shed in another area of the property and be within compliance?
Yeah, I guess we could. We could put it clear in the back in the corner, but it kind of makes it unfeasible for what we was wanting to do with it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cox, you have a comment, question?
Oh, sorry, don't hold it. I just wanted to point out that you should find in your packet a survey from Garber Surveying. If I'm reading it right, it has the size of the shed listed on there. It appears to be approximately 15 by 22.
Yeah, 15
if I'm reading that correctly.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Mr. Johnson.
What size of shed can you build without obtaining a permit?
I'd have to look it up under the building code, but I think it's under 400 square feet.
That's what I remembered. So,
Are there any other questions from the commission of the applicant?
So, if I may, I'm not certain. So there are two types of permits. There's a building permit, and then there's a location permit for smaller. I think it's over 200 square feet where it goes to a building permit. I believe at 400 square feet is where you actually have to have a footing foundation under it, if I remember correctly, and I may not. It seems to be correct. Thank you, Kelly.
But you still have to be within the setbacks and everything else, correct?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
In addition to that, when we did the remodeling, we did have we had the gas lines located, the electric lines located, and stuff like that. They all sit on the south side of the house. We're putting in on the north side where there's no lines, no sewer, no gas lines, water lines, or anything like that we know of. Like I said, when we did the remodeling, they came out and actually did it because there's a patio in the back of the house now, and they had to do it to locate the lines.
Mr. Aldrich.
So is it just the slab portion that's out of compliance? Or if you have an eave on there, where's that going to wind up putting you additional?
They asked that in the permit office. The eave will put us, actually, we're out of the compliance, period. We're 36 inches from the eave to the fence line, and I believe they're telling us that it's a 6-foot requirement that has to be met. So we would still be out of compliance.
Where does the 6 inches come from then?
With the survey that's done,
Is there a
Sir, you got to take the mic with you.
with the survey that's done, it's on a curved street. So the property markers are actually over here, and then there's a property marker out that's over here by what the surveyors show us. So we actually come right to the corner of that garage. The fence line that's currently there is 36 inches from where the awning would be, the fence line. We're not asking them to move the fence. They're not asking us to move the garage.
Philip, did you have a comment? Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone present from the public who would like to speak on this case? If so, please come forward and give us your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
You're done with us?
Yeah, we're done.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Augustine Ray, 72420 North Wichita. Can't hear it.
Sir, can you move the mic up to your mouth, please?
And my property,
Is it on?
Just a moment, sir. Can you hit the button on the microphone?
Yeah, you got it.
my property is on this end. I've been there since 1965. Probably the oldest resident since 1965, still there. I don't have any problem with her problem, and nobody else does. The property in that area is large lots. So I really don't know what the problem is, not allowing her to build a shed in that area. And if nobody has a problem, what is the problem? Other than it's not in compliance with what the rules are. There's plenty of property there for everybody. Nobody's complaining about the property lines. I think when they surveyed it, they even moved the markers over on my property. All those lots to the north of her and the west of her were vacant. My house was the only house in the 2400 block on Roosevelt. So I would ask the panel to approve her problem. It's not a problem for the residents. It's a problem that has been created by a property line. It's not affecting anyone. Nobody complaining about it. So I would like to see it approved that she can leave the shed where it is. She has done more for that property than anybody that has lived in that house since I've been there, since 1965. There's been about 7 or 8 people that's lived in that house. It was run down when she bought it, and she has really improved it.
Sir, your time's up. Can you wrap up your comments?
I would like to see this problem approved and let her finish her project.
Thank you for your presentation. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this case? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. Yes, Joe? Oh, not Joe, Bill Johnson.
Basically, apparently the neighbor to the next door thinks his property line's 3 foot from this. If the property line happened to be 3 foot, we'd still have to hear a case. How would staff stand on this item?
So if the shed was 3 feet away from the property line, the zoning code affords the opportunity for an administrative adjustment up to 50% of the setback if the area being reduced is less than 300 square feet. The issue with that, though, is based on the size of the shed, and we don't exactly know if the shed is 330 square feet. So it's kind of undetermined at this time of how much of the shed would have been in the setback and whether or not we could adjust it. But there is the possibility to reduce a setback by 50% for an accessory structure if the area we're reducing is less than 300 square feet.
And I would add to that that it is not uncommon for us to see applications to do just that, whether it's for a deck or a shed or something on that order. You know, again, as Philip indicated, smaller in size, but that is not uncommon.
So being in construction for 62 years, I always understood that anything under 400 feet, we didn't get a permit, so I don't know how many times we're building.
Mr. Joe Johnson?
I have a real problem with this, but I move for approval.
Before we go there, I would like to give the applicant or agent 2 minutes for rebuttal. If you have anything else you'd like to say now, the speaker apparently spoke in favor of your case, but you're welcome to have 2 more minutes.
I have read your objections. I have been pretty forthcoming and honest in saying that the property markers that are present are out of whack. I believe this is what the variance office is for, is to come ask you for approval of a variance. And that's what we've done. We've complied with everything you guys have asked us. I would ask you to approve us. I would hope you will approve us. That's it.
I have a question to ask you.
Yes, Mr. McKay.
Sir, the property to the north and west of you, your property line is in the backyard of the people next door, correct?
Yes.
Have you considered talking to him and see if you can purchase a portion of his backyard? We do that in the development business.
Well,
lot so-and-so plus so and
we have spoken to the person. As the way the property lines are set right now, it's a crisscross. They have property that's ours. We have property that's theirs. We don't want to make a move a fence. We've talked to her. We don't care about her fence. She's lived there for years. She don't want to move it at the cost of moving. It's a wrought iron fence. So she don't have any objection to the garage. She's not complaining about it. We're not complaining about the property she has of ours. It's kind of like a trade-off, I guess you'd say.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Johnson, your motion, staff's recommendation was denial. Is your motion to approve the case or to follow the staff's recommendation?
no, to approve it.
To approve it. Okay. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, excuse me.
Yes.
Can I ask that the movant specify that he has that he determines that all 5 conditions have been met, and the 2 conditions that have been placed upon this as part of his motion or not?
Mr. Johnson?
I'm not sure I can say that they all have been met, but I'm willing to.
Kansas law says that all 5 have to be met. Sorry. Learned a new procedure. Kansas law required that all 5 have to be met. You know, staff has made a recommendation, but if you want to say that they have been met, that's up to you. But there's also 2 conditions that have to be, that's part of the staff report. Whether you want those as part of your motion or not, you'd have to specify that.
On reconsideration, I think they have been met.
Okay.
What about the 2 conditions in the staff report?
Just to clarify, I think what Mr. Van Zandt is asking is, if you are finding that all 5 conditions are met, Then staff, at the bottom of our staff report on page 3, recommended some additional conditions that would go along with any approval of this. And one is that the shed would be constructed in substantial conformance with a site plan. And number 2 is that the building permit shall be obtained from MAPCD. So I think the question to you is, you've indicated in the affirmative that you think all 5 conditions have been met, but do you wish to attach these 2 additional conditions to any approval of the variance?
Yes. I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Pardon? Oh, yes.
There seems to be some confusion if a building permit is required under 400 square feet. I've been a contractor, not quite as long as him, but about, and we're not quite sure. If no permit is required, then that number 2 should not be there. 330 feet, if it is 400 feet, then it wouldn't be required. So are we okay with that problem?
We do have staff from MABCD, so we've asked Kelly to come up and provide some clarification on that.
Good afternoon, Kelly Dixon, Metropolitan Area Building. On an accessory structure, anything under 200 square feet has to have a location permit, which would deal directly with the setback issue. That's why we do them, to make sure that they meet the setbacks. Anything over 200 square feet requires a building permit.
And if there was an adjustment, administrative adjustment of 50%, that would be that much better for the applicant.
Yes, I mean, but that's a zoning action prior to issuing the building permit.
Okay, any other discussion? Motion by Mr. Joe Johnson. Yes, Mr. Nix.
So I'm kind of having a tough time figuring this one out. Is there anywhere in the statutes for honest mistakes? Is there anything in the statutes that disputes between neighbors that have been there for 50 years? I mean, this seems like an awful long conversation to me over placement of a shed in a backyard in a large lot situation. That's all I'm saying.
Excuse me. Under Kansas law, it's very draconian rules. There's a case that a large commercial building was 9 inches over the setback line, and the court made them move it. So there is no, you guys can be a little bit of a court of equity if you so choose, but if you're just looking at Kansas case law, it's very draconian, so be careful. So with that.
Any further discussion on the motion? Motion by Mr. Johnson. We had a second by Mr. Warren. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Those opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. That concludes the business of the VZA. And now we will go back
Is that your junk pile? I think I got my piles mixed up.
to first item that we're going to, 2.1.
Mr. Chair, I have a question
Yes.
regarding the 2.1. My question that I have is for the agent or applicant. Would it be appropriate, instead of hearing the whole case again, if I can ask my question?
Yeah. Ask your question at the appropriate time.
You know, I just, instead of hearing the whole case, I just wondering if I can just ask a question regarding the conditions is all.
But we also have individuals here to speak on the item.
I'm sorry?
We have individuals from the public who wish to speak on this item.
Okay.
So we have to do the presentation.
I think let's follow procedure at this point and hear a presentation from staff, please.
I should note that With this subdivision, there's been some concerns about how this plat will affect drainage in the area. And I just got word from the county stormwater manager that they request deferment of this agenda item until such time as a revised drainage plan has been reviewed and approved. So based on that recommendation, I will leave it up to the commission whether they want to defer it based on Stormwater's recommendation or if they want to go ahead and hear the case and vote on it. I think
How long
that's
will
the.
they need?
I believe that talking to the agent that they have or did yesterday or are going to tomorrow submit the drainage plan. So my guess is by the time that this comes up in 2 weeks, it will be reviewed, approved, and those issues would have been addressed by then.
I move for deferment for 2 weeks.
Mr. Aldridge, do you have a comment on this first?
No, sir,
Okay, so we have a motion for deferral to, for 2 weeks to the next planning commission meeting.
Kirk Sponsel, Deputy County Counselor. If I may, as part of that motion, would the commission entertain allowing people who are present today to still speak today if they want to instead of speaking at the next hearing?
Yes, I would agree
I
with
would
that.
include that in my motion if it's necessary.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and ask for comments or questions from the commission or first of all, I guess we need to call on the applicant to come forward and speak. You've got 10 minutes. Give us your name and address.
That's just hearing the whole case. That's the whole idea of the deferment.
I know, but I'm not sure I understand this. I think we ought to go through procedure on this if we're going to let people from the public speak on it.
Well, I'm concerned that they are available today and they may not be available in the future. And there may alternatively be people who wish to refrain from speaking until all the items are presented, i.e. the drainage plan.
Well, then my opinion would be that we would go ahead and let the applicant or agent speak and have public comment. And if we decide we want to defer it, we can do it then.
And Kirk Sponsel, Deputy County Counselor, could I call Greg Sharon back up? I'm sorry, Greg. I'm sorry, just for clarification on the record, has a drainage plan been submitted? What item is this that references it?
This would be item 2.1.
Yeah, I mean, which one of the letters?
Excuse me?
Which one of the letters addresses the drainage plan?
Oh, sorry. In the staff report you're talking about.
BG.
So just for the record, they have submitted a drainage plan, it's just they want to make additional changes to it? Is that correct?
The agent might be able to clarify when that was submitted and where that is at this moment.
Oh, is it submitted now, is my question. Okay, all right, thank you.
Scott, did you have something? Pardon? Mr. Bill Johnson.
I got a question from legal. If we open this up for public hearing, do we shut the hearing off and then just hear the case without somebody speaking the next time?
Sorry, could you rephrase?
I don't know why we're gonna hear anybody today.
We either need to hear it or not. We either need to hear it or not.
I think there are two options here. Realistically, if we are looking at deferral, and if it is in the interest, the first option would be deferring it now and requiring that anybody who wants to speak on the item come back in 2 weeks or whenever it's deferred to. The alternative to that would be to have the actual presentation, have the opening of public comments, and then defer later on, and then at the second hearing, allow further people to make public comments. Those would be the two routes I see.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'd make a motion, we defer it for 2 weeks, and we'll hear the case in 2 weeks.
Second.
But I believe, is that all right with you, Counselor?
That's permissible.
Okay,
Staff, it's staff that's asking for the deferral to begin with.
right. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Bill Johnson, second by Mr. McKay, to defer the case for 2 weeks. All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
I have to just do that from the get-go.
Can we, Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
One out of the way.
Bob, can we vote on my motion now?
On your motion, again,
It
what
was the same.
same? You're messing with me.
I made it before.
Okay.
Ours is legal.
What else do we have? Okay, now we are ready for item 4.1. Can we have a staff presentation, please?
Good afternoon, Philip Zievenbergen with planning staff. Item 4.1 is conditional use 2024-00019. It's a request for a conditional use for an event center in the county on a property that is 4.7 acres in size. It's zoned rural residential and is located at 11600 North 151st Street West. This is in unincorporated Sedgwick County. As you can see on the map, it is just north of the city limits of Bentley, Kansas, and it is in their urban area of influence.
4.6.
The request today has two parts. One is the conditional use request for the event center in the county. The other is a request to waive supplementary use regulation from section 3D6 NN number 7. This is the supplementary use regulation that requires a 100-foot setback from any structure of the event center from the property line next to residential zoning. The property is narrow enough that the existing structure is approximately 62 to 65 feet from the south property line as well as the north property line. So if it is approved, the waiver is essentially necessary in order to be in compliance with the supplementary use regulations. In 2023, the structure that is being used as the event center did receive a building permit. The permit was not for a commercial structure, essentially more of like an accessory ag structure. So it was built to the permit. However, again, it was not a commercial building permit, possibly due to a lack of understanding or misunderstanding of how to fill out the permit information correctly regarding the event center. The property received a notice of violation late in 2023 due to a noise complaint. Even though there is not a noise ordinance in the county, there was a complaint filed against it based on a loud event that was going on. And that's when county code enforcement became aware of the operation of the event center, and they are coming to this body today as a means to hopefully come into compliance with the zoning code with this conditional use request. It is my understanding that they have not held any other events at this site since the violation was cited. Should the conditional use be approved, the applicants state that they intend to utilize it for small events, mostly family gatherings, but also possibly rent the event center out for small parties as well. The applicants also own the approximately 5-acre property directly to the south of it. However, they do not reside at either property. The zoning code defines an event center as a premises that frequently rented out for public or private activities that are not repeated on a weekly basis and that are not open to the public on a daily basis at times other than when the event is scheduled. Event centers in the county and rural residential zoning are permitted by right on properties over 20 acres, so that's why they're here today, since they only have about 5. The additional supplementary use regulations are attached to your staff report for your review. As a reminder, this request also includes a waiver of number 7 regarding that 100-foot setback. The event center building is approximately 394 feet east of 151st Street. And as we look at the site pictures later on, you'll see that from the street, the building itself is not very visible at all. If you're not really paying attention, you'll probably miss it. As I said before, it's approximately 62 to 65 feet from the north and south property lines. The property to the south is under common ownership. The proposed event center is approximately 390 feet from the nearest house. And that house is the house 2 properties south of the event center property because the property directly to the south is under common ownership. There's also a house located on the property to the north as well as a property located to the northwest. Those are the nearest dwellings to this property. Property to the west directly across 151st Street is an agricultural field, and property directly to the east behind it is also an agricultural field. The site is, or the property lines, as you'll see in these site photos, is heavily vegetated, mostly with deciduous trees, specifically between the the event center structure and the east property line. One, there's a significant distance between it and the east property line, but you also see the north and south property lines also have quite a bit of vegetation on them as well. The site has access to 151st Street, which is a 2-lane paved arterial in the county. It has an existing gravel driveway that is more of a serpentine S-shaped nature throughout the property. There's areas of spaces where there's large gravel areas that could be utilized for parking. The site plan, if you want to go to the site plan, Isabel, real quick, thank you, indicates more of just a simplistic illustration of what it is. The driveway is actually toward the north property line, and it's kind of an S-curve to the south before it moves to the east to actually get to the building. Should this be approved, staff is recommending a condition that a more accurate site plan be provided that correctly illustrates what the site looks like, specifically indicating where parking is. There is quite a bit of graveled area that could be suitable for parking, but this does not indicate that. As I mentioned before, the property surrounding is rural scale residential with a mixture of large and small properties, some with dwellings, some as agricultural fields. Should it be approved, the surrounding residential properties may experience an increase in traffic, noise, and light pollution during events. The property is not platted. In order to get a commercial building permit, they would also be required to plat the property. Both of those are 2 conditions of approval. Should this application be approved, is that they would have to obtain that commercial building permit, which includes the proper inspections by the different trades. And in order to get those, they would have to plat the property first. The property is within the, if you go to the land use map, please, we can stay with this one, that's fine. Our comprehensive plan land use map indicates that it's in Bentley's influence area, so we look to their comprehensive plan for some guidance as to whether or not this is an appropriate land use. This is from the Bentley comprehensive plan from 2021 to 2041. The red line on this map indicates the city limits of Bentley. The properties going north of Bentley don't go far enough north to indicate where this property is. So we really can't extrapolate what the proposed land use from their comprehensive plan may say. The ones that you do see are indicated as appropriate for residential development. Their comprehensive plan has a statement that says, when an area is designated for a particular future land use, the designation should be considered as an indication of a preferred land use character and a predominant type, rather than an absolute requirement that the area be developed exclusively for the noted land use. So based on the fact that the map doesn't really indicate what the property could be developed for, and this statement which provides flexibility for land use, staff has indicated that at best it's in partial conformance with it. We don't feel like it was out of compliance with the land use plan, but we couldn't necessarily in good conscience say it was in compliance with their land use plan as well. The Bentley Planning Commission did elect to hear this case. It was heard last Thursday, May 2nd. The Bentley Planning Commission did recommend denial of this case. This case was also heard this past Tuesday at the Citizens Advisory Board for County District 3. They recommended approval 4-3 regarding this. There have been a couple members of the public speaking in opposition to this with concerns of noise and traffic. It's also worth noting that there is an event center on 117th Street, about a half a mile away from this, that possibly sometimes gets confused with this one. That one generates significant traffic, significant populations. I don't know if anybody from the city of Bentley is here. Their comments on this is they're a very small town with one full-time police officer and a part-time police officer, and their concern is when large events like this have occurred, with the one on 117th Street, they have been asked to be a partner with Sedgwick County Sheriff regarding managing traffic and emergency services and things like that. And so essentially possibly overwhelming their ability to provide public safety is one of their concerns. Planning staff's recommendation for you is denial based on the findings of fact that are listed in your staff report, specifically the possibility of generating the noise and the traffic, knowing that the county does not have a noise ordinance. That's typically one of the big reasons why staff generally has a conservative approach on these of recommending denial. And the small nature of the property being less than 5 acres and the number of residential properties nearby, knowing you have all these very narrow linear plots with residential properties on them, noise can travel and possibly affect many people should there be an event that generates a significant amount of noise. As usual, staff does provide an alternative, so if this board does want to recommend approval of this, there are conditions for you to consider that are listed in your staff report. The first one is regarding lighting, that light poles cannot exceed 15 feet. This is a standard of the code, but we sometimes just repeat those in conditions so that it's understood and individuals are aware that that's a condition. Number 2 is regarding the site plan, that the accurate site plan be produced, showing us the ingress, egress, where the parking areas are, where the event building is, and things like that. We talked about the requirement for a commercial building permit and that it needs to be platted. Number 5, that it's in compliance with all the other supplementary use regulations of the zoning code except for number 7, if number 7 is waived. Number 6 and number 7 go hand in hand. We typically talk about end times, and this one we're recommending an end time Sunday through Thursday at 8 p.m., Friday and Saturday being 12 a.m. or midnight. And then that no event shall begin before 10 a.m. And the point of having a start time on this, so if you say, well, this has to end at midnight, but don't have a start time limitation, somebody could start an event at like 12:30 and then have it run all day. So those kind of go hand in hand. Number 8 is that amplified music shall be restricted to the indoor event facility and not be permitted outdoors. As you're going to see on the photos, the facility has a garage door that can be opened. This might need to be clarified a little bit more, but essentially that would effectively mean the door would have to be shut. So you don't have the music inside, but you're rolling open the door and it's effectively going outside. Guests shall not be permitted to loiter on the property following events. All guests must vacate the property within 30 minutes after the event, and the host must vacate the property within an hour. Host isn't the property owner. Host would be like if I was hosting a wedding, my guests would come, they would leave, and then I would have more time, kind of clean up, and then leave after that. Alcohol is allowed to be served there, however, it has to have the applicable license as well. We can go through the site photos, please. This is looking east toward the property from 151st. As you can see, even from 151st, like if you see the small white shed kind of in the middle, the building that the events are in are actually behind that. So you really don't even see it from 151st Street. Next picture. This is the property to the south that the property owner or the applicant owns as well. This is, again, the 5-acre property to the south, looking to the east from 151st. Next picture. This is the property to the northwest of the subject site. This is one of the, I believe this is a detached garage of a dwelling that's nearby. Next picture. This is about mid-side on property. This is the event center building itself. Again, it's about midway east to west on the property. Next picture. This is looking from the event center to the west toward 151st Street. Next picture. From the event center, so again, we're about midway through, we're looking south toward the property that the applicant owns. That's that same house that we saw looking toward the property from the driveway. Next picture. This is the rear of the event center. Next picture. This is looking to the east towards the rear of the property. You can see how heavily vegetated it is that you can't even see where the property line is to the east. Next picture. This is looking south from the event center looking north away from the event center. Again, heavily vegetated between the event center and the property line to the north. Next picture. This is closer to 151st Street. You can see that the vegetation kind of thins out when you're looking north, but there's still quite a bit of vegetation there as well. Next picture. And this is more just in between the event center, you can see that they have a fire pit. This is just basically middle of the site where the congregation of buildings are. Next picture. And I can stand for any questions.
Any questions from the commission for staff, Mr. Aldrich?
In the staff opinion, is there adequate restroom facilities at the location?
My understanding is that when they were constructing this, that the site has received an updated septic system. When it comes to like restroom facilities inside, that will have to be determined at the time of getting the commercial building permit to see if the building code has been followed.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Williams Bay.
Phil, do you know the square footage of the building? Approximate square footage?
I do not know off the top of my head. I apologize.
Just trying to get a feel for the occupant load.
I can tell you, when I did the site visit, I met the applicants there, and they did show me the inside of the building. From a perspective, it's probably not much bigger than this room. A little bit different perspective because it has a vaulted ceiling, which may visually increase the look of this space. It is not a big facility in terms of, I can't guesstimate what the occupancy would be. That will be determined again through the permitting process, but it is not a large facility.
Yes, Mr. Warren.
Philip, you talked about gravel parking. I saw some gravel areas in some of your photos. Was that what you were talking about?
Yes. So there's the driveway, but as you get to the event center, there's wider areas of just contiguous gravel. You can see that there.
Yeah.
Going to the left side of the screen is wide areas of gravel where the driveway just kind of opens up.
Mr. Fry.
Thank you. Philip, I know you said this and I just forgot. What was the result of the Bentley Planning Commission?
They recommended denial 5-0.
5-0?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Nix.
So, Philip, we got here today because we had one big A party out in the country and somebody complained, is that right?
Yes, there was an event that was held late in 2023. A noise complaint was filed, and when county code enforcement went out to investigate, they determined that an event center was there.
So if they toned it down, we wouldn't be here today, is that right?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Any other questions of staff from the commission? Not, we'll call on the applicant or agent to come forth. Give us your name and address, and you will have 10 minutes.
We had an event center out at our farm out south of Derby for 30 years, but we never charged for it. It was just a community deal that we did. Is it?
You'll have to hold that mic pretty close to you.
Okay. All right. Hello. My name is Epifania Luna. I own this property, and just a little bit about myself so that you know where I'm coming from. I'm a retired teacher. I taught in Wichita schools for 20 years. This came about around the time of COVID. We wanted an escape from the city. Yes.
I'm sorry. Is the light green?
Yep.
Okay, very good.
You can't hear me. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so this came about as a project during COVID, just an area for my family, my kids and my grandkids to go and to have somewhere to go, during COVID. And so originally it was just a place for us to have family gatherings, and it still is. We haven't accepted money from anybody or for anything. All the things that have gone on there have been my family's things. Like we had Easter there, we had Christmas there. Like Philip said, it's very small. It's 40 by 60. Top, I would say 150 people. So it's not very big at all. It's quite small. We do have restrooms, like a men's restroom and a women's restroom. I know that was one of the questions. So the women has 2 stalls, and the men has 2 urinals and a stall. What other questions did you have? Well, we're basically just here asking for approval because, like I said, we haven't had anything that we've charged for, but people have asked. And so we're here trying to do the right thing, going through your process, paying your fee and asking for your permission to allow us to be able to rent it out. Let me see. I do want to state that, if we were allowed to be able to rent it out, it would be controlled situations. It would be things like weddings or quinceañeras or birthdays, graduations. It wouldn't be open to the public where you would get who knows what kind of people would come in. It would be people that would be inviting their guests, meaning it would be controlled. It would be their guest and, So the reason that I feel we were denied in Bentley is because we weren't able to attend. We were out of the country at the time, and so we weren't able to attend to speak on it. But is there anything else?
Well, I think the reason they called and complained about the noise, we were having a birthday party, and it was a little loud, but there's no noise control or issue there.
Assistant County Councilor Samantha Cian, could you please state your name and your address?
I'm sorry, Guillermo Luna, address 2901 North Parkdale, and I'm co-owner of the building with my wife. And like I said, we were having a party, and the sheriff showed up and told us to keep it down a little bit. So my thought was, why don't we just make it legitimate in case somebody asks to rent it for a wedding or something, because I think we are allowed to have our own personal parties at our property that belongs to us. So, we had those parties, we had people ask, will you rent it to us? And I was like, well, we have to make it legit, apply for commercials for the development, to be changed. But other than that, there hasn't been any. Like I said, there hasn't been any payment received. I know my kids created a website to advertise it, which was too soon. So, but I know you guys got kids. But anyway, if you guys got any questions.
We'll bring it back to the commission. Are there any questions of the applicant? Mr. Aldridge.
Yes, when you built the structure, I'm assuming you built the structure, correct? And when you initially got the permit for agricultural use, was that correct?
No.
Or you just built it?
It was just a pole barn at the time. I think the original thought was that we would move into it as a barn dominium eventually, but that's not, Not now. We think maybe in the future that could be something we move towards, but for now, no.
Didn't you realize if you were going to do that, that you were going to have to obtain permits and everything to?
Okay, that came, huh? That's kind of why we're here applying, yeah. We're members of the Wichita Area Builders Association. We have a construction company, and we pulled our own permit, we built the thing ourselves, and I guess it was kind of naive on our end thinking that we could do that without permission, which is why we're here.
But if you're a member of the Builders Association, you have to have known that before you build something like that, or especially for the purpose of a potential residential use in the future, or event center, you have to have the appropriate permits.
Well, we were looking at it from the point of view as it's going to be a hangout place. Like I said, we weren't planning on renting it.
Right, but you still have to have building permits.
Oh, we have a building permit, sir.
Okay, so
We built a building
okay,
permit.
so you got the appropriate building permits to
Yes,
construction?
yes.
Okay, my apologies. I misunderstood. I thought you.
Yeah, I do know that much,
All right,
yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Zimbelman, did you have a question?
Yes, if the commission were to approve this, the staff has recommended several things that you're going to have to do. Have
Yes.
you read those, and are you in agreement? that you can do
We're
them?
totally in agreement. We're used to doing the right thing, which is why we're here. We were cited, and we said, okay, gosh, we honest to God mistake, okay, we'll fix it. And so that's why we're here, trying to make it right. We paid the fee, knowing that even if we're denied, we don't get any of that back. Our concern is we want to do the right thing, and that is why we're here going through your process.
Mr. Cox, do you have a comment?
I think I'm being asked a question about building permit. Is that correct, Commissioner Fry? So I'll defer to Kelly, who can correct me, but my understanding would be there was a permit pulled for a residential accessory structure or an ag building. Is that correct? Yeah, not a commercial structure.
Got it.
So
That
that's
is
how
correct.
it was built. That's the permit it was built under. I don't
Right.
know the status of that permit, whether it's final or not, but that's what the permit is for.
But it's still a building permit. Yeah, just not commercial.
Mr. Warren?
Our family has had a place very similar to this that we've used through the years, and it's almost always for family or friends' use. We didn't charge for. Is this something you're planning on making a big business out of, or you just want to have?
No.
You want to be able to have the rules that allow you to do it if you wanted to.
Exactly. If somebody approaches us and says, can we use it for our wedding, for our quinceañera, or for our graduation, we want to be able to do it without being in trouble. But like I said earlier, the main reason for this was for our family.
Mr. Williams Bay?
Yeah, security seemed to be a concern. Would you be providing security yourself for this?
If necessary, yes.
Trying to keep it down to about 150 people.
Yeah.
Not going to be 300.
Yeah. In fact, this building seems big to me compared to our spot. It's 40 by 50. I think this is 40 by 60, excuse me. This is longer than what ours is. It's just taller. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate
Any
your
other questions?
comments. Is there anyone else from the public here that would like to speak on this case? Please come forward and state your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Virginia Street of Tom and Virginia Street. We live at 11610 North 151st Street West. We are immediately north of this particular property. What bothered us is initially we thought this was a barn being put up for agricultural purposes. And in other words, that it was prematurely being used as an event center before proper permits were being used. We're concerned about long hours, disturbing the rural quiet, and having absentee owners. We have livestock. The field immediately to the north of that north fence is a hay field. In fact, most of our property is dedicated to growing hay for our livestock. I noticed for the first time is that there is a fire pit, which is an open receptacle for burning things. We recently had an accidental fire on our place it was a legal permitted fire, and the fire department had to come and help rescue us. I can tell you that it is extremely dangerous to have open burning in our area because it got away in an instant and it wasn't even very windy. I really question the ability of their parking to handle 150 persons. And I guess that's pretty much all that I can express, is that I am concerned. We have noticed that there were about 5 events that we noticed to the south. One that persisted pretty late in the evening, but we've never called because we didn't know whether it was family or it looked like a pretty good party going on. Anyways, that is all I am expressing. I am concerned about the precedent of opening rural areas for development like this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else present from the public that would like to speak on this case? If not, we will call on the agent or applicant for rebuttal. You'll have 2 minutes.
Okay, I just wanted to talk to Miss Virginia's concerns. Parking, like Philip said, we own, the 5 acres and then the 5 acres to the south. So parking is not an issue. And the fire pit, it's always monitored. It's always monitored, Virginia. He was there when your fire happened in your property, and it was. Yeah.
Department showed up.
Yeah, trust us. We're very, very careful. It's always monitored. Someone's always there monitoring the fire pit. And the parking is no issue because we own essentially 10 acres. Yeah. Are there any other questions?
Mr. Aldridge.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be a major concern regarding whether or not there's outdoor fires or not, especially the drought and everything else going on. So I'm going to ask you a question. In the event that this is approved, would you be willing to omit outdoor fire use at all?
The fire pit, like turn it into a pond? Or
I don't care. I mean, I don't care about that. What I'm referring to, would you agree to no outdoor fires, period?
Absolutely necessary, yes, but it's one of the features of that.
Yeah.
It's not a 20 by 20 park.
Yeah.
Because you're at a 2,400 square foot. I guess the rough figuring occupancy load on that would be 140 people.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? No, thank you for your comment.
Oh, he had a question.
You had a question.
Oh, Mr. Williams-Fay?
Is your property gated? This is gated?
Not gated, no. It is fenced on all three sides except on 151st.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions? Thank you. We'll bring it back to the commission for discussion, action.
Question for staff.
Yes, Mr. Aldrich.
On item number 8, in the event that this is approved, where it says amplified music shall be restricted to the indoor event facility, will not be permitted outdoors. Could we add to that, that all doors are to remain closed when music is being played? Would that satisfy staff's concerns about outdoor music, even though they're inside, to have that buffer, if you will, with a door?
I don't think we need to do that.
That's why I'm asking staff.
You're asking if we can do it. I'm saying we don't need to do it.
I would just add from staff's perspective that we have used that condition on a number of cases, and the interpretation that we do use is that it's intended that the doors would be closed during the event. So if you want to add the clarification, to add additional clarity, you certainly can, but we've had that on other cases and we currently use that language.
Okay. Commissioner Warren, the only reason why I brought that up is because staff brought it up to have the door closed is all. And also, would there be an issue if we added to the condition to not permit any outdoor open fires?
From the staff perspective, we don't see any issues with that. However, I would encourage you, if you do add that, to add that as a separate number, just so that it's its own separate item.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Does that mean if some teenager's got a stereo turned through up in his car, he has to make sure he's got his window pulled up?
They should.
I just want to add one item for your information. In terms of the parking, all parking shall be located on site. So the applicant's reference to using property off-site as parking for this particular event center should not be considered.
Again, I want to clarify my comment regarding the closing of the door. The only reason why I brought that up is because that's what staff recommended, so I didn't know if they wanted to add that part on the condition 8 or not. I'm not going to live or die on that, but I think it's the open fire I think is more critical.
With respect to the open fire, I think we would recommend that it be tied to any event center, venue, and not for personal use.
Correct, that's what I was referring to ban any open outdoor fire, period, no matter what was going on out there.
No.
Can't do that?
That's a plan for just on their personal enjoyment.
If it's for their personal use and personal enjoyment, I don't think we can restrict their use of the fire pit.
Okay, so I don't see how we can ban it at all anyway, whether it's personal or event then, if that's the case, because can't do one and not do the other. Okay, thank you.
Mr. McKay?
You stated that this town of Bentley turned this down, deny 5-0. Did they give reasons why they turned it down?
As I stated in my presentation, the primary concern was safety, noise, the enjoyment of other people's properties without the nuisance of noise, traffic concerns, the ability to provide and adequately provide public safety, both in the form of like police services, but also possibly EMS, if it needed to be, just because of the rural nature and the 2-lane streets when events have occurred on the opposite property that is not under consideration today. It has provided significant traffic blockage on the local roads all the way back into the city of Bentley. They've had significant problems providing adequate services in terms of public safety and traffic mediation for larger events at another property that's operating out of compliance. They're working through their process right now. That's the general gist of it.
I have a question. What was the vote by the county DAB?
The Citizens Advisory Board for District 3, it was a recommendation for approval 4-3.
4-3.
Mr. Maynard, do you have a question?
As this is built today, permitted today, and the fact that they've been using it for personal use, are they in compliance with that at this time? With what they first set out to use it for?
Kelly, did you hear that question? No, I did not. Commissioner Mader asked if, as it was built, is a residential accessory structure, an ag outbuilding, is it currently in compliance the way it's currently being used and has been used? Is that fair, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, for their own personal use, as she described, built it during COVID, seems like a fun place to go hang out in the country, have some parties with our friends, family. Is that in compliance?
It does meet the residential accessory structure code.
So it's only when they start to lease it out that we have a problem?
Correct.
Okay.
Because it doesn't meet the life safety building requirements for a commercial building.
That'd be a separate permit then?
Yes,
That'd be
that
a
would be
renewed permit?
They'd have to get a commercial permit.
Different
and then
inspections,
commercial
okay.
Inspections.
Thank you, Kelly.
Any further discussion from the commission? Not, we'll call the question. Anybody want to make a motion? Mr. Warren.
Go ahead, you.
Well, I move that we approve the use of this property and include the 11 conditions that the staff has suggested here.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Nix, a second by Mr. Warren.
You have to quote the alternative findings, right? As to why we're reversing.
Yeah, it is a best practice to identify the alternative findings that you would have. So far, what I believe that I've heard is, during the dialogue, number 3, the extent to which the removal of the restrictions will detrimentally affect nearby properties. I believe my understanding from the conversation is that based on the 11 conditions, that will help to mitigate any detrimental effects to nearby properties. Have I heard that correct?
Yes, you have.
Okay. Number 6 is in partial conformance. I think that stands. I don't know that there's been any comments on to the other effect. Okay, those are the ones that I'm familiar with at this point.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Question. As part of your motion, Mr. Nix, do you approve with the staff recommendations for the conditions as it relates to approving it this way? The
1 through 11?
11,
Yeah.
1 through 11?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, same sign. Looks like we have 8 yay and 2 nay.
10-2.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes, right?
Yes, sir. We have the vote as 10-2.
Right.
2 missing.
That's correct. So 14, we have 12.
Okay, the next case that we're going to hear is, I believe, 4.6. Have a presentation from staff, please.
Still people.
Step out to the bathroom. Gotcha. You got me covered.
Good afternoon, everyone. Christina Reith from planning staff. This is case number PUD 2024-07. The applicant is requesting a zone change from GC General Commercial to PUD Planned Unit Development to create the 13728 West Kellogg Drive Planned Unit Development, or PUD number 125. The subject site is a little bit under 12 acres in size and is generally located on the north side of West Kellogg Drive within a quarter-mile west of South 135th Street West. So the address for that is 13728 West Kellogg. The subject site is currently developed with a shipping container sales facility whose office was constructed in 2020. If we could go to the proposed PUD slide so I can talk about it a little bit more. Thank you. The proposed PUD divides the site into two parcels. So although parcel 2, which is to the west here, the larger one, it is also zone GC. That is a 10-acre parcel, and it cannot be developed upon until a CUP is created. It's currently not platted. So in lieu of a CUP, the applicant is requesting a PUD, and it's similar to a CUP in the sense that, you know, they delineate the permitted uses, parking, setback requirements, screening and landscaping, and obviously the public hearing processes are the same. The applicant is filing the zone change request to bring the existing site facilities into code compliance and allow future development on the northern portion of the property for self-service storage. The applicant intends to utilize the existing drive entrance off of West Kellogg Drive, and so that would be from parcel 1. And the applicant requests that if the zone change request be approved, there's really no change in the permitted uses on site, setback requirements, or maximum building height and compatibility standards. And the requested zone change would keep the provisions of the landscape ordinance as well as the Wichita sign code. However, the applicant is requesting several exceptions to the screening requirements in GC zoning. So if we look at the south half of parcel 2 on the left and all of parcel 1, the applicant requests to remove the screening from the south and the east property lines for product sales and display. Additionally, the screening on the south half of the west property line of parcel 2 shall be permitted by, addressed by existing vegetation. Then lastly, for the north half of the west property line and all of the north property line of parcel 2, the applicant requests to substitute the required screening with, which is normally a 6 to 8 foot solid fence, for screening with portable storage containers, joined end to end and painted a common color. So should the zone change request be approved in order to ensure harmonious development currently and in the future, both within this property and the surrounding area, staff has some recommended changes. Those are listed in your PUD text towards the end of this report. And so we're actually recommending that that they do not permit the use of storage containers as screening. So parcel 1 of the proposed PUD that is platted and is currently developed with a shipping container business, which is permitted in the current zoning as warehousing. And then for parcel 2, because it's greater than 6 acres in size and zoned commercially, in order to get those commercial building permits, that's where we get the CUP or the PUD. So we also are recommending changes to the PUD's parking requirements. You can see in your PUD text that they are requesting gravel as for the drive aisles, and we are recommending the surface material be at least of a dust retardant material of sufficient depth and must meet the standards of the Wichita Fire Department. If we could go to the zoning map real quick so I can talk about it. Oh, the computer's frozen. Okay. Well, I'll just talk about the character of the neighborhood real quick. It is, so it is commercial along US Highway 54 and West Kellogg Drive. And then just to the north of that, we see some low-density residential. So properties to the north are zoned SF5, single family, and they're developed with single-family dwellings. Property to the south, across Highway 54 and West Kellogg, that is zoned GC and is undeveloped at this time. Property to the east is zone GC, and through looking through the subdivision plat for the Auburn Hills subdivision, that was deeded by the original developer to be used as open space. and then directly to the west of the subject site is an unimproved right-of-way, and then west of that is GC and also undeveloped. There are no zoning cases associated with this property. The requested zone change is in partial conformance with the community investments plan. When we see the future growth concept map here, it identifies the site as primarily appropriate for new employment uses. So the way that it's defined within the community investments plan, they talk about, warehousing and distribution. So that is the current use on site, and that's what they're requesting to continue. However, when we look at the locational guidelines, those are the decision-making framework regarding land use changes. So one of the general development pattern guidelines states that it actually discourages development from occurring in aquifer recharge and flood-prone, high-ground water, wetland, and unsuitable soil areas. Now, I do want to make an important correction here because I was corrected at this at the DAB meeting last night. This is not the Cowskin Creek. This is the Calfskins Creek. And it's apparently a very important distinction. So the Calfskin Creek, that runs through Parcel 2, and that is categorized by FEMA as a special flood hazard area, which makes a significant portion of this parcel flood prone. Now, if you look at your aerial map in your report, you'll notice that the Calfskin Creek, it is primarily used as a reserve in some of the subdivisions, especially in Auburn Hills and then east of South 135th Street West. So it's used as a reserve to mitigate that sort of runoff in commercial and residential developments. However, if we look at another general development pattern, it states that major and commercial and employment centers should be located at intersections of arterial streets and along highways and commercial corridors. And so this one is on West Kellogg. And additionally, primary outdoor sales should be located along highway corridors in areas where the uses have already been established. So when we talk about the land use compatibility guidelines in the community investments plan, one of them states that industrial and major commercial land uses that generate pollution, odor, noise, light, safety hazards, and high levels of traffic should be located away from residential areas and developed with screening, buffering, and site design features sufficient to mitigate adverse impacts. So the PUD text, as it was written, it proposes some screening exemptions on portions of the site and gravel surfacing throughout the development. So it is staff's opinion that as the way the text is written, it does not promote those site design features sufficient to mitigate the adverse impacts to the residential zoning directly to the north. So based upon the information available at the time of the public hearing, staff recommends denial of the application. This recommendation is based on the golden rules listed in your staff report. I'll just skip ahead to the last one here when it comes to opposition or support of neighborhood residents. At the time of the publication, staff received 3 phone calls in opposition to the requested zone change with concerns for dust associated with gravel surfacing, possible future development, and noise associated with its current use. Should the MAPC find that the zone change request be approved, it is recommended that the MAPC adopt alternative findings supporting the recommendation, and we have a list of recommended conditions that are also listed in your staff report. Isabel, is it still frozen? All right, thank you. No, I just wanted to talk about some of the photos here, but they are in your staff report, and so if you guys have any questions about those photos or just about the report, let me know.
We have any questions of staff from the commission? If not, we'll call the agent or applicant forward. You will have 10 minutes. Please give us your name and address.
Can you hear me? I think we're working.
You're going to
All
have
right.
to hold that mic pretty close to your mouth.
I'll do my best. Whoop. A little
There
loud.
you go.
All right. Thank you. My name is Matthew Tucker. I'm with BHC Savoy, located at 165 South Rock Island here in Wichita. I'm here to represent the client and owner of the business on the subject locations the subject site. I'd like to take a moment and walk you through the reviews of this PUD and go into its current state and revisions that have been made for it. So we start with the staff review, which, as previously stated, was an initial recommendation of denial with recommendations contained within it. We found that that recommendation was by and large based on an observation of potential disruption in the area due to noise, dust, or concerns about screening. In going through the golden rules that we would typically use as our measuring stick for any zoning case, you can quickly go through the first 4, 5, 6 of them without much concern for any noncompliance. So our existing use remains the same. The site was zoned general commercial prior to the client opening a business there, prior to the plat of parcel 1, prior to all permits. The business was operating on parcel 1 with all landscaping and screening as required to the adjoining residential neighborhood. And when the client desired to develop on parcel 2, that triggered a need for a CUP or PUD as he would go over that 6 acres that the city typically looks at and recognizes as driving that need. So we're not looking at a use change. We're not looking at a character change. We're not looking at a more intense use than what is currently there. There's certainly an economic opportunity as you get into golden rule number 5. A denial of our request could represent a loss in the use and enjoyment of the applicant's property. The applicant currently owns this parcel 2 is just over 10 acres, and over 8 acres of it right now is naturally heavily vegetated and screened. Screening is provided. We'll get into that a little bit more later. But there's a large value for 8 acres of general commercial zoning along the Kellogg corridor. I don't think anybody here could argue that. Not even considering the full 10.5 acres of parcel 2. So I think it's unrealistic to expect that no development would happen there. That wouldn't have been the intention of the comprehensive planning if it was identified as a place for new employment along the Kellogg corridor. Obviously, we can't develop within the floodplain, and we have to be careful of all those waterways and runoffs. There's state, federal, and city regulatory measures in place to ensure that that's not an issue. When we go to rule number 6 of the golden rules, we talk about conformance with the comprehensive plan. And this is where I think I differentiate a little bit with the staff statement. There was a statement made that it's in partial compliance with the community investments plan. However, as indicated, it is an area where employment efforts should be made. Ironically enough, the adjoining residential is also in the area where employment should be made. And just looking at that alone, I believe the neighborhood's in non-compliance of that plan. However, let's be real, the neighborhood's going to stay, right? And our intention here is to find a balance in the use of the area. As it states in the comprehensive plan, there is specific verbiage about the use of sales along corridors and existing uses in the area continuing to be used as such. My client operates a sales business, not a storage container or an on-site storage business. I believe it was previously presented as on-site storage inside these containers. These containers are actually a product that are sold. They are not containers for the general public to use as storage. This is not a storage facility. So then that brings us to the last of the golden rules, talking about impact of the proposed development on community facilities and opposition or support of neighborhood residents. When we talk about community facilities that could be impacted, we certainly have to consider the ponds downstream of this site that exist within the neighborhood. I'd like to point out that the business has been running successfully for 4 years now on parcel 1, and as of current, I have not been provided with any financial burdens that were put upon the HOA or any of the residents for damage to ponds, negative impacts in the neighborhood. However, I will touch on that again here shortly. But by and large, community facilities have not been negatively impacted by the business as it operates now or would continue to. And we get to opposition or support of the neighborhood residents. There have been some phone calls. I am privy to that. Concern about noise and concern about dust pollution in the air. Staff also addressed those. So to continue, the PUD was also reviewed or sent out, notice of it was sent out to those in the area, and the HOA actually did provide a letter. It was received after the report was generated and circulated, but I was given a copy of that letter, and in that letter it talks about noise, trash in the ponds, dust, and visual impact and property values. So let's walk through those real quick. The noise in the area has actually been, the verbiage within the PUD supports the existing trees that are out there remaining to continue as a noise barrier, not only to business, but also the highway. There's far more noise generated by the truck traffic that goes through that area that has potential to be knocked down by the mature trees that are out there than the current business operating. That could be a subjective statement, I understand that. Trash and pond, as of right now, as previously stated, I've not seen any evidence that there's been negative impact of trash or increased runoff to the ponds downstream of the site. The client is required to operate outside of the floodplain, which is far beyond the limits of the banks of the creek. Dust, staff recommended a retardant treatment on any rock or a low dust alternative for aggregate treatment in any drive aisles. And visual appearance, we have measures in place as sites develop for landscaping and screening. I realize that the original ask of the PUD may have been perceived as varying from the UZC. However, there are measures in there for storage containers. We have since removed all of that language from the PUD. And then we talk about property values. And if you look at, there was a question of property values and resale in the area in the HOA letter. The values, if you look at them on the tax website, the properties immediately adjacent to my client's business on parcel 1. If you review the tax values of those 4 properties from 2019 to current, the business was constructed in 2020, so I think that's a fair time frame. Those values have gone up anywhere from 21 to 27%. Now, one might say, okay, all the property values have gone up. We're all feeling it, right? I get that. So I went and I looked at property values further into Auburn Hills, far away from the site, more than a block or 2 away. And their average increase in property value from 2019 to current was around 20%. So the values went up in line with each other. There was not a negative effect on that. So that brings us to the DAB, which actually was rescheduled. I presented some information to each of you this immediately before the meeting. That is in reaction to the DAB. We did not want to circulate a final revision of the PUD until after I had been able to hear from the neighborhood staff and gone through a district advisory board. So in response to
Sir, your
those-
time is up. Can you wrap this up pretty quickly?
Absolutely, absolutely. So in response to those, what you have in front of you is a revised PUD. That revised PUD addresses dust in the form of retardant material for the drive aisle, which currently exists as rock. So the client would be required to treat all rocked area, not just the drive aisle that would be in question, with a dust retardant. So you would end up with a business with less dust than what currently exists out there today. We've addressed noise and screening and landscaping concerns. We revised all the language to be in compliant with the UZC, also in compliant with the Wichita landscaping ordinances, and that any existing native vegetation out there maintain at least 2 times the landscaping ordinance until such time that any platting or development may happen and would be subject to review for further landscape requirement assurance. And our final revision, we adjusted the text for clarity to make sure that the verbiage and intention of both the surfacing and the screening was understood to be that the client would be required to follow all zoning code. So we've moved from asking for any deviations from Unified Zoning Code to being fully in compliant with it. And the reason for this PUD then being just to allow gravel in the drive aisle with a dust retardant application and a reduction of the screening along West Kellogg, because the 3-foot parking lot screening that would have been required along the frontage would not have screened anything. The property is anywhere from 4 to 6 feet below the drive grade, the existing road grade. So I think that sums up where we're at, and I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions from the commission of the agent? Yes, Ms. Wallace.
Does your revision include the storage containers as screening?
So actually, within the zoning code, that is an allowed method, but we removed all the verbiage and applied verbiage that addressed screening to be per the Unified Zoning Code and landscaping ordinances. So screening would be reviewed during any development applications and plating processes.
Mr. Warren.
Yeah, you presented to us that earlier today, the beginning of the meeting. This is from you guys, right?
Yes, sir.
Have you had a chance to talk with staff about this? Is this, and got their opinion on how well this takes care of their concerns?
So the reason that a PUD was even brought to the table was my client was contacted by staff about compliance issues, specifically a CUP or PUD, screening along West Kellogg, and dust mitigation for the gravel drive aisle. So J.R. Cox had indicated to me that a PUD would be necessary and he would support such a thing. So then I have talked to staff since then. Christina and I have talked about the staff denial recommendation. I also talked to, we had our DAB meeting. It was supposed to be Monday, which is why you didn't receive this material until now, because it got rescheduled due to the weather, and we had it late last night. So I prepared this material and brought it here today, not being able to email the city for other reasons as well prior to this meeting. So yes, efforts have been made to address staff concerns, and when this process started, we felt like we had staff support from the conversations I had had. I've also reached out to the HOA to try and get support there. I was informed that I would have to be invited to one of their neighborhood meetings to present, and at the time I was refused the location of it. I was told it would be at a clubhouse in one of the 3 additions, but anyway, we reached out to the HOA, and then the property owner himself has actually gone and had talks with adjoining property owners.
Thank you.
Yes, Scott?
Yeah, I just want to add a few clarifications. Number one, when staff talk with folks about issues, this was brought to our attention by a complaint that was turned in about the property and the way it's operating and how it's out of compliance with the zoning code in terms of screening. So that was the first time that we engaged with the property owner. Second of all, staff do not indicate whether they're going to support something or not. They simply provide options and provide avenues that the applicant or individuals can choose from. The other point that I'd like to make is that per the zoning code, any property that's in commercial use that's 6 acres or larger would require a CUP. A CUP standard is a requirement for a masonry wall around the property as screening. So in this case, by applying for a PUD and saying per the UZC, what would apply would be, my understanding is 6-foot wood fence is typically what's used for screening, but I want to highlight for you the difference between what the zoning code is and what the CUP requirements would be if it had a CUP on it.
Any other questions or discussions concerning the agent? Yes. Oh, go ahead.
If I may, real quick, I do apologize. I think I used the word support. What I meant to say there is that I was told by staff that a PUD would be a solution for the gravel and screening and such. So not that, oh yeah, this is going to go through, but that this would be the direction to take.
Go ahead, Mr. Mader.
Question, a better description, or maybe say it again so I get it this time in regard to the screening. One of my big issues is always screening. And what is required today of this property or will be required when it's developed versus what they're proposing?
So in terms of, I'll answer with what would normally be required. So if a property is 6 acres or larger and it's in commercial use, then it is required per the zoning code to be entered into a CUP. They have the option of doing a PUD instead, but a CUP is a typical requirement. As part of the standard CUP conditions, a masonry wall is typically required as part of that. That's why in a lot of shopping centers around Wichita, you're going to see a masonry wall located on the perimeter of that property. So that's kind of the standard. That's what I would consider being the basis and the standard. In terms of what they're asking for, I believe what they're asking for is to have the ability to do 6-foot high screening per the zoning code, which our standard is typically 6-foot high solid screening, which is typically complied with by installing a wooden fence. Yeah, and that's typically.
Yeah, typically, there are other options. Landscaping berms can be used. They require special approval, but typically it's a wood fence, solid wood fence.
So installation of the wood fence mitigates the need for any landscaping? Or is it in conjunction with, or is it instead of?
So there's a separate landscape ordinance that probably would be applicable here, but the zoning code itself, so there's screening and there's landscaping, but in some cases you can use landscaping for screening, but there's still a landscape ordinance, if that helps.
Yeah, it's really clear.
Are there any other questions of the agent? If not, at this time, we'll call on anybody from the public that would like to speak on this case. Thank you, sir. Please give us your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me? It's on? Okay. Mike Dunaway. I live at 14326 West Ocala Court. And kind of give you an idea, my home would be about right in here. First off, the original east parcel that was developed quite a few years back was a facility, building was built, and they were retrofitting buses to be turned into party buses. And then after, I don't know, a period of time, all of a sudden that business went away. I don't know exactly what happened to it. And then we all of a sudden start seeing a large number of these shipping containers being put out there, scattered throughout, this whole area in here. Sometimes we've seen them stacked too high, sometimes only single high. As brought out earlier, again, these two water hazards off of the golf course has this Calfskin Creek, for drainage. And I've lived here for 17 years, and I've seen several times where at one time the water actually came up over the golf course and was heavily inundated down in through here. And we haven't had major rains for a while, but it's always a possibility in the future. From a standpoint of a resident in the immediate area, obviously we're very concerned about property value. And when they did talk about this area being heavily vegetated, it kind of is, but it's not like mature trees and things of that nature. It's just pretty much undergrowth, anywhere from 3 foot to maybe 5 or 6 foot high. And like I said, the gravel issue, because there is a possibility of dust and whatnot, and we just felt like they're not a good steward to the neighborhood. We kind of feel like some of the things that they've already done since they've been there are out of compliance with maybe what the general guidelines for the zoning is for that area. And I think that's the main things that I'm kind of interested in bringing up. If anybody has any questions for me.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this case? Please come forward and give us your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hillary Jones. I live at 1517 South Auburn Hills. If you can bring that other picture up, I'll show you exactly where I live. And my other neighbors are here also. Yes, we want to talk about the picture you had before. Yeah, okay. I live right here. My other neighbors here that live there and one that lives here. So when this company or whatever it is say, hey, that, we are good proprietors to our residential neighbors, I'm not totally inclined to agree with that. The dust do come. The fencing that's there was originally for a busing company that was there that was running some busing stuff. This company just showed up overnight, okay? And have they had dialogue with us about what their intentions and what they're doing? No. They've put that gravel in, and yes, I get lots of dust across here. Well, I have to go clean my back patio up every time. So that's one thing. The other thing is the noise is a problem, for sure. They're talking about the stacking of those containers. If they stack 2 containers, there's about a 10-foot fence and not a 6-foot fence. That's the other thing I want to clear. It's not a 6-foot fence. It's about 10 to 12 feet, and that was there before that. There was a conversation that was had because we just been there about 3 years. And that fence, when they stack 2 containers, okay, you can still see the fence, but when they stack 3 containers, when you look out your window, that's what you see is those containers. And if you think that's anything beautiful, you're fooling yourself, and that's a very nice neighborhood. You pay a lot of money there, and you don't want to look out and see those stupid containers over there. So I don't agree with them on the container concept. Absolutely do not agree that we should continue the asphalt, the dust stuff that's coming across there. That's a problem. Also, they put lights in there that to be able to light the property at night. Shines right in your backyard, Again, they don't come and have conversations with you, so they make it seem like, oh, yeah, the residents are all cool with that. No, what we do is we talk to our homeowners association, hoping that they would talk to them. I have went over there a couple of times and asked them to not stack those containers 3 high. They have not done that. But I just want to say, no, I do not agree with what they're trying to do and what they're saying they are and how they're representing themselves. So thank you very much, and my other neighbors can have that conversation with you. Yes, sir.
Sir, I just want to make sure I understood. You said you've lived there for 3 years?
Yes.
So this was an operation prior to you moving there?
No, sir. It came in right.
Staff report says 2020.
Sir, can you use the mic? This is being recorded. Can you please use the mic?
sorry.
Thank you.
Hold on, I've got a question for staff. Staff report says this was an operation in 2020.
Was this zone GC as warehousing in 2020? So it was prior to them moving in?
The property has been Zone GC, actually don't know when it was Zone GC, but it's been Zone GC for even more than 4 years.
Okay.
It was a busing company that was there, tour buses.
Whether or not that's what the company was, it was zone GC. And warehousing is a permitted right on GC.
Warehousing and outdoor storage are permitted uses in general commercial.
Thank you.
Yeah, they piggybacked on the busing company's fencing thing.
Thank you for your comments. Is there
Okay.
anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this case? Please come forward and give us your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
I appreciate you. Thank you very much. My name is Austin Sharp, 1513 South Auburn Hills Court. So I live right over here. Yes, sir.
Do we have a mouse up there that we can use? No.
All right, can you hear me now?
There we go.
All right, wonderful. So I do share the largest, I'm probably the largest neighbor of the business that we're talking about here. I've had good conversations with him in the past about the trees that do line my entire property here on the west side. That is something that I do hope you guys take into consideration when you are talking about screening. When you talk about a 6 acre, over 6 acres requiring a certain kind of screening, there is a very, very large green belt, probably 30 to 40 feet high, right there along that border between me and him. So I want to make sure that no matter what, the green belt is taken care of. Where there could be, screening potential or discussion for that, I say that we take the natural conditions into consideration. That is my primary concern. I do know that there is additional screening up here that is natural. So I'm not for sure how you guys determine what kind of screening goes around the full property, if that is a requirement. But I would certainly keep natural screening or vegetation in mind.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this case today? Please come forward and give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Tim Bachman. My address is 14518 West Valley High Court. I am the president of the Auburn Hills HOA Board of Directors. That board consists of volunteers that are elected each year by our 406 members in that association. We have 9 residential developed lots that border the applicant's property. In addition to that, there are 2 properties owned by the HOA itself. Those 2 properties are this lot 51 and this Reserve B property. The Reserve B property consists primarily of a stormwater detention pond, and it's surrounded by manicured grass and open space. The letter that you should all have in your packet came from the HOA Board of Directors. So primarily in that letter, we highlighted concerns for stormwater runoff from the property and depositing trash and silt into the Reserve B pond. Restoration of the pond to remove siltation and restore the pond would probably run in the neighborhood of $50,000 or more. This is based on a previous pond restoration that the HOA has already undertaken inside the HOA. Not that particular pond, but another one that is slightly smaller. annual expenses to treat water quality issues as a result of the siltation and the depth of the pond being reduced because of the siltation, and then the resultant algae growth and fish die-off and all those types of problems. We'd estimate those to be in the neighborhood of $1,000 a year. And that's based on current operating budgets for maintaining these ponds within the association. Also of a concern is the FEMA flood area. It was depicted on that previous picture there. It comprises a substantial area of that particular parcel 2. It's primarily this whole area here. And as you can see in the aerial view in your packet, the applicant has already developed a substantial area of that floodplain, and those are shipping containers that are placed there. So we believe that the gravel parking that is proposed, that gravel is going to wear down. It's going to deteriorate. That siltation will wash into the Calfskin Creek, and where it will be caught is the Reserve Bee Pond. Also within the letter, I highlighted our concerns for property values. We believe that the existing general commercial restrictions are inadequate considering recent home sales in the area. The applicant's agent brought up how property values have increased on a percentage basis. That is not, that's true, they have. But on a percentage basis, if you need to really look at comparable properties to see how they're affected, which is what I had done.
Sir, your time is ended. Can you conclude your comments?
I will try the best I can. Comparing
Thank you. 1 minute.
Comparing two properties, this one that partially borders the applicant's property and developed residential and undeveloped commercial was compared to this home sale, which is also developed residential, golf course, and undeveloped residential. The difference in those home prices, the sale price, and they sold within the last year, within a couple of months of each other, the difference in sale price was $40,000. This property sold for $40,000 more, even though it's a smaller house on a smaller lot. That should tell you the impact that this could have. There is there are $4.5 million worth of appraised values, that residential values that border the applicant's property. And if you look at that comparable home sale, you're talking about a potential loss of $1 million to those property owners. In closing, the HOA opposes the zoning change. We also oppose the proposed reduction in screening requirements, the gravel surfacing, and the general development of the commercial property. Our HOA is certainly open to dialogue, seeking solutions to address these concerns. It sounds like the applicant's agent has some ideas in mind. He has reached out to the HOA. We received that yesterday, and we will certainly work to get you invited to a board meeting and give you the address so that you can get there without any problems.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this case? Please come forward and give us your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
My name is Connie Dietz, and I live at 14117 West Monterey Street and if I may, I'll show you where our property is. It's this one right here, and they are our neighbor to the south. We have had dialogue with Mr. Bose, I believe his name is, Dallas Bose. We moved in 2021, January 2021. At that time, there was not a storage container facility there. I don't even believe there was a bus rehabilitating or whatever they called it. But when we lived there, to the south of us, it was completely full of very large trees and a lot of growth. We had a lot of wildlife that came through our yards. The ponds were full. Once they came in and they bought this property, they brought bulldozers in and they bulldozed down all of the trees that had been there for many, many years. They also went over and graded all the vegetation that was there, and that caused silt to run into the pond behind our house. My husband, who's been in construction for over 40 years, went over to talk to him, and he said he was not aware he had to get an architect or an engineer to design for him because he wasn't aware there were any restrictions on the lot, that he could do what he wanted to do on it. My husband also talked to him about the security lighting that was invasive. Our whole back of our house is lit up at night. We have had to put blackout shades. He said he would correct that and point the security lighting down. He has yet to do that. That's been over 2 years now. His comment to my husband, Craig Dietz, who has been in construction forever, he said, "What are you going to do, call and report me?" And my husband told him, "No, I would think that you'd want to correct these issues yourself before people start calling." I am asking you, please deny this petition for rezoning. It will cause our property values to decrease. We will be, before this gentleman starts this rezoning, we are seriously considering putting our house on the market so we can get the prime value now before he moves all these other storage containers in on that property. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? I would remind you at this point to try to confine your comments to things that have not already been covered. Please give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, this on, I guess. All right, Val Gonzalez. I live at 1521 South Auburn Hills.
You're going to have to hold that mic close to your mouth.
Sorry. Okay, so this one right, that one right there. So, all right. So, in terms of the shipping container place, other issues that we came across was the noise. They don't consider, the other day at 4 o'clock in the morning, they were, putting the shipping containers, making a lot of noise. 6 a.m. on the weekend, which, some of us like to sleep in a little bit. My mom, as they walked down Kellogg, said that they seen a couple of drifters trying to make a home there. And pretty much the dust also. We also get a lot of dust coming from that area. And same thing with the lights. They got a big light that just flashes right. It's right in our window. We have to put our windows down. So yeah, other than that, that's all I got. So thank you. Questions?
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak at this point? Please give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
I'm not a public speaker, so.
You'll have to hold that mic pretty close to your mouth.
My name is Tim Smalley. I live at 14101 West Monterey Street, which is my wife and I right there. We've been there. We were only the second house in all this development when it was built, and moved in 2006. And some of the problems that we've seen is semis go in and out of here, and they break the concrete, the sidewalk. They damage the terrain going in and out of that driveway. There's trash along here from broken pallets and stuff where they fell off the semis that pull in there and load up these containers. The noise, like she said, they cut down all these trees. There's noise that just comes right through here from the highway. The silt problem, we back up to that pond. It is a lot shallower. There was a lot more problem with the green algae now than what there used to be. It's just been stripped. You can see it used to be like this. It's all been stripped. Just a few trees, a few big ones in there, and that's it. They have parked a car and a trailer over here. It's like, I don't know what they're doing there, but they're just sitting there in this floodplain area. I don't know, it's kind of like a junkyard. Trying to think of some other things that, they pull in here, this is all gravel. They come in there with those semis, and when it's muddy, this is all gravel, they back out, and this Kellogg Drive gets rocks all over it. And you drive down there, then you got to worry about somebody in front of you throwing up the rocks and hitting your windshield, cracking your windshield, because it's got rocks all over that street. That's my concerns, anyway.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to speak from the public at this point? If not, we will bring it back to the applicant or agent. You will have 2 minutes rebuttal.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to listen to the community voices and take things back to the ownership to make sure that we are being considerate in the way he runs his business. Most of the concerns revolved around dust, trash, and maintaining the vegetation that's there that complies with landscaping as far as the evergreens. I think I heard it referred to as a green belt. I can assure you that per the landscaping ordinances, a green belt, a evergreen row is required as part of the Unified Zoning Code, and the way that the PUD has been revised ensures that that would have to maintain itself. It would have to stay. The personal opinion, the worst thing you could do is build a berm and rip all those mature trees out and try to plant a tree that's going to die on top of a berm. Mature trees do a far better job at both noise reduction and visual appearance. So thank you for pointing out those are there. I'd like to point out to everybody that development of Parcel 2 is not platted, and I'd just like to remind everybody that through the platting process and any development review processes, landscaping ordinances and screening is required to be proven and accepted. There are measures in place for that, and that would be required regardless of the approval of this PUD. So most all of those things would be addressed in that manner. Also, existing commercial drives are concrete in and out of this site, and gravel is allowed for long-term storage. Anything that sits more than 3 days on the site, that's allowed by right in a GC area. What we're talking about as far as the gravel is that the client would then be applying a dust retardant to all gravel, not just what was allowed by right, and continue the use of the gravel drive aisle that was in question. Aside from that, we have also been more restrictive on our PUD than what's allowed in GC, which is what this is. We've reduced the allowed height from 80 feet to 35 feet. to take those kinds of screening issues into consideration for whatever future development there might be. And when I say future development, please understand that if my client were to leave tomorrow, this is zoned GC. It was zoned GC before any development. It will continue to be zoned GC. You could have a recycling processing plant in your backyard. You could have a hospital. You could have a correctional placement facility for correctional residents. There are a lot of other things that are far more intensive than what the client is currently operating as. And we can go back and look at permitting and historical imagery if you're concerned about timeline and what has happened. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, sir. I'll bring it back to the commission at this point for further discussion.
I'd like
Pardon?
to ask a question.
Yeah, Joe, go ahead.
Do you know if this property was all owned by one person at one time that did the development of the housing and sold off the front for GC?
I don't have the history of the property when the housing developed. I do know that the client did not own parcel 2 at some point during the platting and development of parcel 1. The client did not own parcel 2.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
It's back to the commission.
Thank you for your comments. Now we're going to bring it back to the commission for discussion and
John,
action.
couldn't you answer that question?
Pardon?
The
Mr. Newell, can I
ownership,
ask
the original ownership?
the gentleman
of that property?
if he could answer my question?
The guy that was up here?
The guy, yeah, right there. Wait. We gotta get a ruling on this first.
I can tell you that the developer of the housing subdivision did not own this property and never did. They owned one piece of property that was given to the homeowners association, the one that the gentleman was referring to.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Mader.
Question of staff. This was submitted today, and you just got it today. Has staff had a chance to look at this and give a recommendation? Or how long would it take staff to look at this and give a recommendation back as to approval, not approval, or addition, or changes?
So during the public comment, I was doing a cursory review of what was indicated in the letter, comparing the language of the PUD drawing that was attached to the letter with the PUD language that's in the staff report. Cursory review would indicate that essentially they are changing, they are in agreement with the staff recommended language. So when you're looking at the PUD language in your staff report, the language that is in red was what staff recommended to be changed. There's language that was struck through. Essentially, they changed what was in here to accept what's in red based on the staff recommended language. Does that make sense? So my understanding is the proposed language that they submitted today doesn't necessarily add anything that staff hadn't already considered. And that is, because we provided staff recommended language in red, my understanding is what they are proposing is essentially accepting the staff recommended language.
Bit of clarification. Staff, though, is currently recommending denial. And if this was submitted, would staff recommend denial or approval? And you haven't had a chance to review that yet.
No, not in regards to that. Thank you for the clarification. Our recommended language was if this board were to recommend approval of it, this would have been our recommended language to the PUD. In terms of whether or not we would recommend approval of the zone change based on this language, no, that was not under consideration because we got it when you guys did.
Still might not recommend. Okay.
Mr. Aldridge.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I think I missed it, but was there any clarification about the district advisory board? Have they met, have they heard, have they made a comment?
As Christina's walking up to the mic, they did consider this last night, and I'll let Christina talk about the discussion.
So the original motion was to recommend approval subject to staff comments. That motion failed 3-4. And then there was a motion for denial, and that was approved 4-2.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Warren,
Make a motion that we follow staff recommendation of denial.
Second.
okay, discussion?
I would like to make a substitute motion to approve the request per the alternate findings of, I believe the applicant has addressed the dust gravel issues, the landscape screening, and use the staff recommended conditions as part of that approval. The 4 items listed on page 4.
Second.
I have a second from, a motion on the substitute motion from Mr. Fry and second from Mr. Bill Johnson. Any further discussion on that? If not, we'll vote on the substitute motion. All those in favor signify by holding your hand up. Opposed, same sign.
It's a 6-6.
Can we have those in opposition to the substitute motion? Hold up your hand just so we can record who's voting which way. So if you are opposed to the substitute motion, so if you're saying no to the substitute motion, please raise your hand.
It's not. Yeah.
Okay. The original motion, and that'll be a tie.
Okay. So,
Back to the
Go
original.
back to the original motion.
so we
Can you
have
clarify
a
that?
tie. We'll go back to the original motion.
And can we get a clarification who seconded the original motion for denial? So we had a motion by Mr. Warren to deny. And did you second it, Mr. Zimbelman? Okay, thank you.
Can we, I'm sorry, can we see the show of hands again for the original motion to
We haven't
deny?
voted yet.
We haven't voted on the original.
No wonder you could.
Hold on just a minute, and you'll see it. So, the original motion was made by Mr. Warren and seconded by Mr. Zimmelman. Okay, now we're voting on the original motion, which is to deny and follow staff's recommendation. All those in favor, raise your hand. And those opposed, the same sign.
Tony, keep your hand up. I'm kidding. See, you switched, okay.
Should be 7-5.
7 to 5. I
So the vote is, we're just making sure we have the individuals. The vote was 7-5. Motion passes.
Right. Okay, I believe that was the last case we have to hear. Is there any other business to bring before the commission? If not, we're adjourned.
Killed a few trees today.
See, the county commission had the rock crusher on their agenda.
They did?
Yeah.
What'd they do?
They approved it. So.
I'm not sure how this is going to hamper what he wants to do, because the existing zoning pretty much allows him to do what he's doing.
I'll have to figure it out now. Really?
Yeah.
Or he could sell it and let somebody else develop it in commercial, it would be worse.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's what he'll do. No. Not for GC.
I don't know who changed sure it does. I don't either. 80% of it's in the
Recorded which way. So we count 70 as
Okay.